Good morning. Welcome in here to Pickswise. Let's Bet It. I'm Mark Zinno alongside Jared Smith. Hope everybody's having a wonderful Tuesday morning. Jam-packed slate for you guys here today on Let's Bet It. A lot of Major League Baseball, including some NFL as training camps get underway. Make sure you guys download the Pickswise Pickswise app and go to and subscribe to the Pickswise YouTube channel and tell us everything you love about the show here. Get some comments in there. Ask some questions. We're here for you all. My co-host today, Jared, how are you, brother? Good to talk to you once again after a POD sweep yesterday we pulled off.
Nailed it. Couple at plus money too, LJ, but the plus 125 got Lodolo across the finish line late. It was I think it was his last inning, but he was fantastic in that game. And then both of us were really good with our nerfy bets. Today is a great day. You know why today is a great day, Colonel Zinno? Because all 32 NFL teams are in training camp currently, including our good friend Kyler Murray, who I know you are very excited about his contract yesterday. I'll be honest, when I took it at first glance, I was like, okay, I think we're going to start seeing more of these types of implications and, little caveats and contracts for guys to be studying, nerd contracts, so to say. But I know you're very passionate about what Kyler Murray did yesterday, so please share me your thoughts, because I do think it's kind of an interesting turning point for some of these big-name quarterbacks when they sign these big deals.
Well, again, I just don't understand the business aspect of this whole thing. There's so many things about this that are contradictory. Look, if you have to mandate film study for your quarterback, it's because your quarterback doesn't understand certain things about the game and needs to understand, then needs extra film study. Then why in the hell would you pay him $230 million? And if that's not the case, that you're just doing it to needle the guy because he's threatened to hold out, he was not going to play for you and everything else, and you paid him $230 million, and now you're going to be petty queen with him and say, well, no, that's 357. You still got 3 minutes of film study left. You can't leave yet. If that's the extent of this whole thing, then what sort of relationship are you creating with your star quarterback? This is a bad business deal and a bad way to go about conducting business across the board. If your quarterback needs more film study, you don't pay him $230 million, okay? If you pay him $230 million, don't treat him like a baby because you had to pay him $230 million. Adult in the room. It's okay if Aaron Rodgers, who's got multiple MVPs and a Super Bowl under his belt, want to sit there and get in fights with the organization because he's got a Super Bowl and multiple MVPs under his belt. That's not Kyler Murray. And the Arizona Cardinals don't have any Super Bowls to their record. That's not the Green Bay Packers. It's different. So they're acting ridiculous for what reason I can't understand. This doesn't end well, I don't think. I think this sort of blows up in both of their faces.
Yeah, and I think I agree that there are setting up there's some landmines that are going to be having to be tiptoed around later in the year. For example, if and when Kyler Murray has a bad stretch. Hey, how's the film study been going? He's going to get that question from somebody. And that might set off some nerves, strike a nerve inside if there is some turmoil behind the scenes. Now, that being said, I do think we are going to see more of this with a lot of these bigger name quarterbacks. And I don't think it should just be around things that take place on the field. How about some of the off-field things? If I was a GM, I would be putting a caveat or a line in every contract that says, if you have one sip of alcohol, you call the team Uber driver. That should be in your contract. And again, not to baby these guys too much, but at the end of the day, what have we seen been the trip ups for a lot of teams? A lot of off-field stuff, a lot of interest. So I would not be surprised if this contract is kind of a precedent setter for later interesting amendments placed in other big name quarterback or big name player contracts down the road. Because at the end of the day, the NFL is a business and they need to get the most out of these guys because sometimes they do not come anywhere
Listen,
near living up to these
I
contracts.
understand what you're saying. Okay. The problem is, for me, that quarterback is the position on the field more than any that requires you to be the best decision maker of everybody in the room, right?
Sure.
That goes beyond the football field in general, okay? As we've seen, Baker Mayfield not the best decision maker, right? Like both on the field and off. So the Browns were wise to not pay him because he's not a good decision maker. But that being said, that maturity, that knowledge, that prudence, that intellect, all that comes with being a good decision maker, if you have to put these clauses in your contract for your quarterback, the simple answer is don't sign that quarterback.
To
Be
be
the
fair,
adult in the
though,
room.
he's 24 years old. Can we give him a chance to grow up a little bit?
No,
He's on his
no, you
first.
took a
Like
good,
I think
no,
I think
you
that
took a
at the end of the
job.
day, it is still a business, and you can't take it personally. And he's 24. You know,
Sorry, don't be a quarterback then. You know what? Go to the minors. Go sit in the minor leagues and make minor league guy
Aaron
mistakes.
Rodgers is almost 40. He's had plenty of opportunities. So I just think it's hard. And even Patrick Mahomes has been in this league now for what,
Listen,
6, 7 years? Like he's been in the
I
league for a lot longer.
will,
So the first
I
contract,
will
I think
give
it's
you.
fair to put some safeguards in place. If he doesn't figure it out by the second deal, then we have a problem.
I will give you a correlating example that you will understand and respect. Derek Jeter went through the biggest city in the world with the biggest parties, the most danger, and the most trouble at 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26 years old and never once got in trouble, period, because he was the
Well, he never
adult
got
in
in
the room.
trouble, but there were issues. Like he had issues with the front office signing deals, and that was public. He had issues with his personal life, who he was dating. He didn't love that. But Derek Jeter is 1 in a million. I think it's unfair to
Okay.
compare Kyler Murray to Derek Jeter.
All I'm saying
Very,
is that
it's
if
tough.
you want to be a quarterback, if you want to be a quarterback in the league, you better prove that you're a good decision maker. And if not, then
That's fair.
teams shouldn't sign these guys to long-term deals. All right. Speaking of long-term deals, Lamar Jackson aching for his, and the Ravens holding out. Mike Sando of the Athletic every year does this quarterback tier list, which is a great column. It's fun. I don't necessarily agree with all of it every year, but one of the people who was anonymously quoted about Lamar Jackson said, and I'll paraphrase here, quote, I don't give a stink if he wins league MVP 12 times. I don't think he'll ever be a one as a quarterback. Lamar Jackson hate gotten out of control, Jared?
Listen, first of all, anytime something's said anonymously, there needs to be a pause because it's easy to sound off anonymously. I think when you look at Lamar Jackson's efficiency, it is fair to question him as a top 10 guy. For example, there is a metric that we use, EPA per play plus completion percentage over expectation. It's combined together, and it's some formula that the stat nerds like to do. And it's a very, I think, fair way to grade quarterbacks' efficiency. For example, the top 6 last year, Rodgers, Burrow, Mahomes, Jimmy Garoppolo. You can question that one a little bit, but still good completion percentage, and Matthew Stafford. I would say 5 of those 6 guys are probably considered 5 of the 6 best quarterbacks in the league. So this is a fair metric to grade quarterbacks with. And Lamar Jackson in this metric last year was 19th. He was behind guys like Russell Wilson, Tua, Kirk Cousins, just on the same level as guys like Carson Wentz, Matt Ryan, Taylor Heineke. So I think it's fair to say he's not a top 10 guy based off of these metrics that we use to grade the efficiency of quarterbacks on a daily basis, on a weekly basis. But when you talk about upside, when you talk about a guy that can be an MVP of the league and put together eye-popping numbers and make guys look foolish on an athletic field weekly, he's on that list, I think. So that means that it's fair that smart people are on both sides of the aisle here. Personally, I would prefer the Rodgers, Burrow, Stafford, Brady types at my quarterback position. Less volatile, more consistent. But I understand certain schemes, certain offenses might prefer a guy like Lamar Jackson with more mobility. But personally, for me, I wouldn't put him in the top 10. I would probably put him just outside.
All I have to say on that is this, okay? I have been somebody who has been critical about Lamar Jackson as a passer of the football. I'm not
Sure.
critical about him as a quarterback. I'm critical about him as a passer. That said, when we make these lists, we seem to do one contradictory thing, and it's either quarterback wins matter or they don't matter, right? But yet somehow we ignore that for some and not for others. So on this list, Justin Herbert was fifth. Okay. Now, if you're talking about purely quarterback skills in a vacuum and a skill set, I have no problem with Justin Herbert as fifth. But what I do have a problem with is Joe Burrow at sixth, who is nowhere near as talented as Justin Herbert. And there's an argument to be made. There's a handful, probably 10, who have better quarterback attributes than Joe Burrow does. But yet we put him sixth because he took his team to the Super Bowl last year. In that case, quarterback wins matter, right? And if they do, Lamar Jackson's team wins a whole lot when he's on the football field. And that is the measure at which we have to understand whether he is valuable or not. Because genuinely, I don't care who you are. If you go 4-12, you're never winning an MVP. See Deshaun Watson for 20.
Burrow had the highest completion percentage in the league last year, so let's give him a little bit of credit. I mean, he did have the highest completion percentage in the NFL last year.
Okay, I'm not saying that he was a terrible quarterback. What I'm saying here is from quarterback skills standpoint that
I think Herbert's got a better arm probably. But again, when you're looking at completion percentage, Herbert's way down on the list compared to Burrow. So I think there are some things that Joe Burrow does very well, and I think one of them is win. Frankly, I think he has that moxie to him. Even in his rookie year, he was like, even when they didn't win a lot of games, I think he was someone who was able to win more games than the Bengals maybe should have. So I don't know. I'll be honest. Lamar's a lightning rod. I don't know which direction it's going to go. They had one year where they won a ton of games with him at quarterback, and he was the MVP. They had some other years where it was a struggle. I think it's a lot more volatile. I think with a guy like Burrow and Herbert, it's more consistent. And I think that's where I would lean on with my quarterback. I want consistency every week. Lamar Jackson could be the best player on the field at any given moment, but he also can look like the worst throwing the football, which that's tough when you're a quarterback in an offense that needs consistency. So that's where I struggle, I think. And he also lost his best wide receiver this year. So if you want to call Marquise Hollywood Brown his best wide receiver.
All right, speaking of consistency, let's pivot here to the no-run first inning, the Nerfy. Consistent as heck.
Wow.
So far this month, 10-2 yesterday, 55.6% this month, and up 25 units. Jared, Nerfy regression after this insane run, is it coming? Should we be looking at Nerfy's yes-run first innings or ride this thing out?
I think if we've learned anything about this bet this season is they tend to be 50-50. I've seen a lot of regression, both positive and negative. Anytime one separates itself earlier in the year, the Nerfy had this crazy run. If I'm looking back at the stats right now, the Nerfy was over 51% in June, which is pretty good. It's not crazy like this Nerfy trend has been this month in July. But I think if anything makes sense here is eventually this will come back to earth. Now, that being said, I'm still going to we have enough data now, I think, that I'm just going to stick to the data. And I'm just going to see what the data is telling me about these pitchers, these starting pitchers every day. And I'm going to use the starting pitchers as my guide. And I'm going to stick to what the edge says on my sheet. And today, I'll be honest, you nailed it early in the morning. You must have got that Phillies-Braves game really early in the morning. But there's a couple of other edges on my sheet today. And a couple of them actually are Nerfy edges. I would look at the Nerfy early on in this Pittsburgh-Chicago game. Bryce Wilson and Keegan Thompson both have really bad numbers to the Nerfy this season. And the other one I would look at is, what's the other one? Oh, St. Louis, Toronto, with Palante and Barrios, who have been kind of bad this year. So if you are looking for some Nerfy regression today and you want to bet the Nerfy, those are the two games I would target. And we also have two bets on the site, I think, as well, that are both, I think one of them is a Nerfy, the other one is a Nerfy. But I would look at those as well because we're on a ridiculous run with those. The Pickswise MLB editors are on an incredible run. So there's edges here. I think these bets are better than betting full game. I don't know what you think, but I'd rather bet these than full game MLB.
You're not going to argue with me. You're not going to argue with me. I only have to watch 15 minutes of an event for my bet to cash.
Exactly.
So, not even. If it all goes well, it should be about 4 or 5 minutes, and we're out of there. And that includes a commercial break. So, yeah, I'm all over the Yerfy and the Nerfy. All right, some of our plays here for today, and again, what you referenced is I won't give it away, but that number that is on our sheet there, I got last night right as the lines
Tremendous
posted.
bet.
Yeah,
Tremendous
and so
bet.
when I saw it and I looked at who the starters were, and I'll let you
Yeah.
break it down because it is your POD. But let's get really into some of our plays here for today. Pablo Lopez for me of the Miami Marlins. Now this is a number again. Last night when I was doing the prep and looking, 4.5 is his K prop. Okay, and it was juiced to all high hell at -166. But I looked, he has gone just 3 starts this year where he hasn't gotten 5Ks. Just 3. He's gotten 5 or 6 in every single one of them. And so I wrote it down, and then I said, I want to see where this goes in the morning. Of course, this morning when I got up and looked at it, on FanDuel, it was moved to 5.5 -118. And the alternate K prop of 4 or over 4 strikeouts, right, which would be 5, same thing, was at -270. So clearly, it was a huge shift in the odds, and I'm glad that I locked it in when I did. And I almost wanted to make this my POD, but I want to hang myself every time I make a K prop my POD. It's just an awful recipe for disaster for me. So I usually leave them off. But Pablo Lopez against the Cincinnati Reds today. Reds, one of the highest strikeout rate teams in baseball, 4th worst in Major League Baseball. They strike out more at home than they do on the road. It's a perfect recipe here for Pablo Lopez to get me to 5Ks. And then interesting, and this line is still out there because I checked this morning. Atlanta and Philadelphia. Spencer Strider for the Braves. Aaron Nola, who's been fantastic this year against Atlanta for the Phillies. Under 8 still out there at BetMGM at minus just 115. Oh, giddy up. Get me in there. Right, real quick. While it's still there. It was there before I started the show, so I assume it might still be there. But it's 7.5 everywhere else I've seen. So give me under 8 in Braves Phillies. What do you got, Jared?
Yeah, it is 7.5 now, at least on MGM, -110 on both sides. So you missed that one. So I'll hold because we've got JJ on, and both of my picks are coming in the Yankees-Mets game, and then the other pick I've got is the Nerfy in that game you just mentioned, Braves Phillies. So I think we should pivot to JJ and get his Subway Series thoughts, and then in the midst of that, I will give out my walk because they're both in the same game, which is ironic, and I wasn't trying to do that, but that's just how it worked out today.
You heard us talk about him. You can hear him on the New York podcast from The Ringer. You can see him on SNY, the big personality from the Big Apple. John Jastremski joins us here this morning on Let's Bet It. JJ, look at you. You're beautiful, baby. Great to see you.
Boys, I tried to be just for you. I made sure the hair is not totally out of place. The coffee has been consumed. And it's not like 10,000 degrees in New York. It's like
humidity's gone.
It actually was a nice walk. I look forward to the run later. I look forward to the Subway Series later. So let's get
Love it. You're going to run up to the Bronx. Get on the old FDR.
Jared, I've been running. I'm not running that far. No.
All right, JJ, big series, obviously, between these two teams. Best in the NL East, best in the AL East. So handicap it for me, especially with tonight's starters, Jordan Montgomery and Taijuan Walker. Yankees -1.5 on the run line, -120 on the money line, and a total of 8. How do you see game 1 going in this series?
So it's interesting, Mark. Last year, the Yankees shellacked Taijuan Walker in a game where a lot of people thought Taijuan Walker was tipping his pitches. Then Jordan Montgomery, I was at the game at Citi Field. He couldn't get the Mets out. So I'm curious to see, first and foremost, how Montgomery and how Walker make adjustments from last year, which I know was a long time ago. Different lineups, different season, but not great history, right? That's number one. Number two, if the Yankees are going to get a game in this series, it's tonight. Because tomorrow, I mean, listen, I know it's baseball. I know wacky things can happen. It's Herman Scherzer tomorrow. I got to figure that's going to be like a -180, -190 Met line. So the odds will be stacked against the Yanks tomorrow. I would expect the Yanks to kind of throw the kitchen sink at this particular game, meeting Montgomery. And remember, that Yankee bullpen not as deep as it was a week ago when you take Michael King out of the equation. They need something from Monty, but I think the line kind of shifting the way it did, I think it kind of tells the tale in this game. I know it's public-sided. I think the Yankees are the right play tonight.
Yeah, JJ, I'll be honest. When I look at this series, this is a very interesting – the timing of this series is very interesting. And of course, the playoff vibes that we are going to be feeling in this series, I think, is going to be hot and heavy. Now, that being said, I've been obsessed with these walks props lately. I've been doing really well with them. And it's ironic that my entire board that I scanned today, the two that I zeroed in on, are both in this game. And I think when you view a game from a more playoff intensity perspective, especially with these two lineups, grinding out at bats, getting the pitch counts up early in the game, trying to get to the bullpens, it breeds walks. And then when you look at the lineups of these teams, also, they have been crushing the walks prop numbers. Here you go. Jordan Montgomery, the lefty at Citi Field, 12 of 16 lefty starters have gone over 1.5 walks against the Mets at Citi Field this year. And on the other side for Taijuan Walker, 18 of 25 righties have gone over against this Yankees lineup. So when you look at this game, yeah, we could bet the side, we could bet the total, but zeroing in on this specific prop with the walks and with the lineups trying to grind out at bats, what are your thoughts there?
That's a fun one. And for starters, if I'm the Yankees, considering the Mets have hit for absolutely no power over the last couple of weeks, how do you let Alonso beat you if you're Jordan Montgomery? Now, you want to tell me there's a situation, there's nobody on base, you're going to pitch to Pete? Fine. But like I go back to Sunday Night Baseball, perfect example. Second and third, nobody out. Musgrove's on the mound. Had a base wide open. Put Alonso on base. Instead, he ends up hitting a 3-run homer. The Mets don't have pop in this lineup. So from a Yankee pitching perspective, especially with Montgomery on the mound, I am not letting Alonso get anything to hit in a big situation. And from a Mets perspective, look, I mean, Aaron Judge, the guy's just hitting bombs galore. Now, it's not to the extreme it was against the Baltimore Orioles. I mean, the Orioles should just never pitch to him, period.
No.
I don't care if they move the fences back another 30 or 40 feet at Camden Yards. He's still going to hit the ball out of the ballpark. But, like, Judge is the guy for the Yankees. Alonso is the guy for the Mets. But I'm going to give you two guys to watch here. One from a Yankee perspective, one from a Met perspective. Lindor had a monster game against Montgomery last year. Lindor has had a good series coming out of the All-Star break. I'd look to get involved with Lindor props tonight. And from a Yankee perspective, nobody in this lineup is hotter than DJ LeMahieu. LeMahieu is hitting the ball like he did in 2019, 2020. So from a prop perspective, those are two guys I have circled. LeMahieu for the Yanks, Lindor for the Mets.
Well, again, you kind of detailed it, JJ, why I like the Nerfy in this game. Mets don't give up any first-inning runs at all, and there's not a lot of pop at the top of the lineup. You only have to worry about Alonso beating you with a single swing. So not a bad pair. But you mentioned Aaron Judge and the pending contract situation with him. You know, I've seen the papers in New York all writing, Yankees should learn from Braves with Freddie Freeman, and they're all writing the wrong story. Because what the Yankees should learn from Freddie Freeman is that if they win the World Series this year, they should let Aaron Judge walk. Let him go. There's no reason to keep him after that and pay him. Like, for a guy who is often injured, for as good as he is, to give him a 7-10-year contract at that kind of money, I don't think you're going to get better. This team is not built to win 3 or 4 like the late 90s, early 2000s dynasty did. They're not that way. They don't have that core that the other team did. So your opinion on Aaron Judge, what do the Yankees do with him, and how long will this contract situation drag out?
So I understand that point because, look, Juan Soto for the next 10 years, Aaron Judge for the next 10 years. Like, if everything is equal, you're going with Juan Soto, and that's no knock on Aaron Judge. I think it's more the point that just Juan Soto probably is the best hitter in all of baseball. But you have to look at it from a Yankee perspective as far as not just what Judge brings on the diamond, but the Yankees are well aware that he's marketable, that he's on all the billboards, that he's selling those 99 T-shirts, that he's the unquestioned leader of the team. So here's my caveat. Like, I don't think Juan Soto's getting traded, guys, between now and the end of July. Like, I think it's an off-season move. I do. I think it's complicated. You know, that is a major domino to basically just throw together a trade within 2 to 2.5 weeks and expect it to get done. That's tricky. So maybe he does get traded. If he does, I think it's like the Cardinals or the Padres or the Mariners. Like, here's the issue for the Yankees. They are an all-in team. So, yes, adding Juan Soto, putting him on the team this year, fantastic. Would be great. Like, I would love every minute of it. But within that Yankee clubhouse, that does signal, Mark. If they go and get Juan Soto and give up the farm to get Juan Soto, that Aaron Judge is gone. And I don't know how that would be handled the psyche of it. Like, I wouldn't lose sight of that. Like, yeah, long term, better player, no doubt. For this Yankee team, on the field, it makes them better. Off of it, I don't know. I don't know how that would be handled. Like, you could say, oh, it just makes them a better team. There's nothing to worry about. I don't think it's as simple as that.
I agree. And the clubhouse has been a big one this year, especially with Matt Carpenter. I mean, that guy's fit like perfectly into that Yankee clubhouse, and just all of the intangible pieces that I think a lot of those guys bring to the table. Will that be compromised if they go out and get a big name? I think the most interesting thing when we look at Judge and we look at this entire Yankees team, right now, we're just handicapping how they match up against the Astros, right? Because that's the inevitable end here. The Astros in a 7-game series in the ALCS. It seems like that's the road that we're going down, JJ. And I'll be honest, and I'm as big a Yankee fan as you'll find. I don't know if we're going to win that series. I would give the edge to Houston, even if the Yankees have home field advantage. How do you cap the American League? Do you think the Yankees right now have an edge over Houston?
No, because they got to show me they can beat the Astros. That's why it's imperative between now and the end of July, Luis Castillo, that's a big arm. Now, they haven't scored against the Astros. That's why complimenting the lineup. Here's what I would do, deadline. Castillo, Benintendi, and an arm or two in the bullpen. Then I think the Yankees could say, hey, let's put the boots on. Let's go to battle. And I do think getting home field makes a difference there. A lot of times I think it's very overrated in baseball, but the Yankees never hit at Minute Maid Park, and they never beat the Astros at Minute Maid Park. So if I can get an extra game at Yankee Stadium, I'll take any which edge I can. And it seems like a foregone conclusion, guys, right? Like in late July, it's going to be the Yankees and the Astros. Baseball's weird. I mean, that's all I'm going to say. Like, as much as
extra wild card team too.
Extra wild card team. And if there's a team that's going to upset that, like I've been thinking about that for the last couple of weeks, who would it be? I think it's the Toronto Blue Jays. Because Toronto's starting to come on. They clearly have star power within that lineup. They have been aggressive the last couple of years. They brought in Jose Barrios, who's pitched terribly this year, but last year he was great. Don't be surprised if the Blue Jays make a big move or two. Look, I think we probably get Yankees and Astros, but you never know.
I hope we do.
Well, I've said since, late May that there are only two outcomes for the Yankees this year, and both of them have put a smile on my face. One is they win 110 games and win the World Series. The other is that they win 110 games, don't win the World Series, and Aaron Boone gets tossed. So, both of those have put a smile on my face as a Yankee fan. All right, one quick question here, JJ. New York through and through, New York, the podcast, but yet you're still a Dolphins fan. It'll always perplex me. Your outlook on Tua and the cheetah and everything else Miami has put together this year.
The nerd and the cheetah.
I mean, listen, I want to be wearing the Yeezys and be hanging with Mike McDaniel on the South Beach sideline. I feel like I would fit in, except I'm not as smart as those guys. So my Syracuse education might bring down the room a little bit. But guys, in all seriousness, I'm very excited to watch the Dolphins this year. I think they're one of the most fascinating teams going into training camp. Look, Buffalo is by far and away the team to beat in the AFC East. I think Buffalo is the best team in the NFL. And if they don't get to a Super Bowl this year, I think the folks in Western New York are going to be wondering, they're going to be saying, well, when are we getting to a Super Bowl? Why do I bring that up with the Dolphins? The Dolphins have been owned by the Buffalo Bills. They don't match up well. They have not put up points. I want to see Miami compete with Buffalo. But I think the speed at wide receiver, like, guys, if their offensive line holds up, I feel like I could get Jared Smith or Mark Zeno at quarterback, and those guys, like, they're going to make plays. They're just too fast, for goodness sakes. Their win total went from 8.5 to 9 already. I think the Dolphins, who have had 2 winning years, back-to-back seasons, they have a terrific ready-made defense. We'll see how much of that was Brian Flores. They kept and retained the defensive coordinator. Interesting angle to watch. If they can survive their start in getting used to, the McDaniel scheme and some tough games outside of the Patriots in week 1, I think they're a wild card team. I don't think they're a championship team in the AFC, but I think they're a wild card team.
5-1 to win the division, JJ?
No.
Or is it too early?
Here's the problem. They never beat Buffalo. They just don't match up. Like, they don't match up well at all with Buffalo. And I believe they go to Buffalo in like mid-December. So if the division is tight and like Miami needs to win that game, I know my entire life, going back to Marino and Kelly and this current edition of the Dolphins, they never win up in Buffalo. So no, I'd love to, but I cannot, Jared. But
yeah, you're right.
They're going to be second in that division. Under Patriots this year. The Patriots did absolutely nothing in the offseason. And I hate betting against Belichick. I know they were a playoff team last year. I'm down on the Patriots this season.
Week before Christmas, Miami at Buffalo. Mid-December in Orchard Park. No bueno.
Not ideal.
All right, Jared. Sorry, John. JJ, good to talk to you as always. Give John a follow on Twitter at John_Jastremski. Always great to hear from you. Check out the Ringer podcast, New York. Good to talk to you, bud. Enjoy the rest of the week. Thanks for the time.
Guys, my pleasure. Anytime. Talk soon.
JJ, tremendous, bud. Love you. Great stuff.
All right. That'll bring us to the time of the show here where we have to pivot and get to our plays of the day. But first, you go to Pickswise.com and check out our plays of the day on the site. Jared, what do we have on Pickswise.com?
We got some love cooking here. So I believe I think this is actually your play of the day. It is. So not only do you have a play of the day that we're about to talk about, but Mark Lammy is doubling down on your play of the day. I won't give it away. I'll let you do the big reveal in just a moment. But just know that Mark Lammy is also on Mark. It's a double Mark play of the day on Pickswise. Diane Knox-Ballas, who I'm pretty sure we'll hear from tomorrow, has already got her Rocket Mortgage Classic picks on the site, including a 3-star bet on an outright. And Ricky Diamond in the Atlanta Open. Zeno, you're going to go hang out at the Atlanta Open this week with John Isner on watch Ricky Diamond's 3-star play? Yay, nay.
Look at that. So, only if Ricky Diamond's going to be there.
Near you, right? So when you get back.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yep.
There you go. Lots of fun.
All righty. Well, would you like to lead us off with plays of the day, or would you like me to follow through with Mark Lammy?
I think, what did we do yesterday? You went first, right? And we won. So you go first again. We'll be superstitious here.
Okay, let's do it. So let's turn around to Tampa Bay and Baltimore here for the Nerfy. Now, the big question mark in this Nerfy is the starter for the Orioles, who is Spencer Watkins. 3 of his last 4, since coming off the IL, he has not allowed a first-inning run. In fact, he's been really good since coming off the IL. He's got a 1.19 ERA, and opposing hitters are hitting just 195 against him and hasn't given up a home run. The starter for the Tampa Bay Rays, Shane McClanahan, really simple. No runs in the first inning in 10 of his last 13 starts, and 2 of those 3 that he did were to the New York Yankees. Orioles are last in first-inning run scored percentage at home this year, and Tampa Bay is worse on the road at their first-inning run scored percentage than they are at home. This is a very favorable price at -113. It's a Nerfy between the Orioles and the Tampa Bay Rays. Jared, your play of the day.
Love it, love it, love it. I'm betting it as well. I'm going to parlay it with a couple of those other Yerfy and Nerfy edges that we talked about on my sheet from earlier. And, of course, I'm going to bet it solo, too, because that's anytime you and Mark Lammy are both on a 3-star play of the day on the same bet, got to take it seriously. All right, kudos to Colonel Zeno for getting this bet in last night at -106. At -106, this bet is like a 2-unit play. At -130, I still think it's worth the unit. It's still the biggest edge on my Nerfy sheet today at -130. That just shows you how big of an edge it would be if you can find a -106 or a -110 out there, or anything less than -130. So Spencer Strider and Aaron Nola, 27-2 to the Nerfy this year. Holy shnikes. Nola's rate to the Nerfy since 2019 is also almost 80%, 77-20. That's a massive sample size, almost 100 starts, and he's hitting the Nerfy at 80% during that stretch. So the implied Nerfy rates of these two pitchers combined, taking the biggest sample size as possible, is 84.7%. And if you look at the -130, which is implying about 56%, that's a massive edge between those two numbers. So I feel really confident about the plus EV we're getting here at -130. So there's the pitchers. Now let's look at the lineups. Well, Philly's only scored once in the last 9 games in the first inning. There's no Bryce Harper. We know that. And the Braves are a below average team at home this year. They've only scored once overall in their last 6 games. And again, you're getting 2 below average lineups. The Phillies are really bad on the road, just at 17%. The Braves are slightly below average at home, and you get 2 plus above average pitchers at a relatively fair price. So I think this is the best spot on my Nerfy sheet today. Phillies, Braves, I'll lay 30 cents at MGM.
Beautiful. I mean, I love it. When I saw the starters and saw the number last night, my jaw almost hit
Tremendous
the floor.
bet by you. Tremendous bet
Part
by
of the
you.
reason the Braves aren't scoring at the top, Ronald Acuna is not hitting bombs. I mean, that's really what it boils down to. He's just, that's the one thing you have to worry about with the Braves as far as betting a Nerfy against him is that Acuna can put one out of the ballpark. He's very good at hitting leadoff home runs. It's just been a dry spell for him. I'm sure he'll snap out of it. I just hope not tonight. So we expect a good matchup. Well, Jared, as always, it is a pleasure doing a show with you. You guys follow him on Twitter at Jared Lee Smith. I'm at Mark Zinno. Make sure you guys, again, subscribe to our YouTube channel and download the Pickswise app. Take us with you wherever you go. So for Jared Smith, I'm Mark Zinno. You guys have a wonderful Tuesday. Best of luck with all your bets. This has been another edition of Let's Bet It. Go get it. Go bet it. Have a great day.